For 300 years, the Galactic Council had maintained peace through carefully worded warnings and diplomatic threats. Every species that had ever challenged their authority had eventually submitted, some through negotiation, others through economic pressure, and a few through the subtle demonstration of overwhelming force. But when they sent their standard ultimatum to the small blue planet in the Sol system, they received something unprecedented in galactic history. A formal declaration of war signed by every nation on Earth. The Council had expected fear, compliance, or at best, defiant posturing. What they got instead was humanity doing what humanity does best, preparing for a fight they had no logical chance of winning, with a smile on their faces and engineering manuals in their hands. The Galactic Council's warning ambassador Zethkar adjusted his ceremonial robes one final time as the translation matrix hummed to life. The holographic display showed the primitive blue world rotating slowly in the void, its single moon casting shadows across continents that the Galactic Council had been monitoring for the past 50 standard cycles. Earth, they called it. The third planet in a system so unremarkable that it barely warranted a footnote in most stellar cartography databases. Yet here he was, preparing to deliver the Council's formal warning to what the locals called humanity. The irony was not lost on him that a species that had only recently achieved basic, faster-than-light communication was forcing the hand of a galactic government that spanned over 40,000 star systems. The communication array established connection with the largest population center the humans called New York. Within moments, the primitive but surprisingly sophisticated translation protocols were exchanging data packets. The humans had learned quickly, Zethkar admitted grudgingly. When first contact had been established 18 months ago, their technology had been laughably primitive. Now they were managing real-time quantum-entangled communications across interstellar distances. This is Ambassador Zethkar of the Galactic Council, representing 43 member species across the Orion Arm. I am transmitting on all frequencies to ensure this message reaches your governing bodies. His voice carried the weight of authority that came with speaking for trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. The response came faster than expected. Ambassador, this is Secretary General Maria Santos of the United Nations. We've been expecting your communication. All world leaders are standing by on secured channels. Zethkar's four eyes narrowed slightly. Expecting his communication, the humans had shown an unsettling tendency to anticipate Council actions before they were officially announced. Their intelligence networks were proving far more sophisticated than their technology levels should have allowed. Secretary General Santos, I am transmitting under Protocol 7 of the Galactic Accords. What follows is an official warning from the Council of Species. The holographic display in front of him showed incoming data streams from across Earth's surface. Every major city, every military installation, every scientific facility was receiving the transmission simultaneously. The humans had learned to coordinate on a planetary scale with remarkable efficiency. The species known as humanity has violated Article 15 of the Galactic Non-Interference Treaty through the development of quantum consciousness transfer technology. This research represents a clear and present danger to the stability of known space. The Galactic Council hereby demands the immediate cessation of all related research and the surrender of existing data for proper disposal. There was a pause that stretched longer than Zethkar had anticipated. In his experience, most species either immediately complied with Council demands or began negotiating for more favorable terms. The humans were doing neither. Ambassador? Came the Secretary General's voice, carrying a tone that Zethkar couldn't quite identify. Could you clarify exactly which research you're referring to? We have several ongoing projects that might fit your description. Several ongoing projects? Zethkar's translator array flickered as it processed the implications. The Council's intelligence suggested humanity had stumbled upon quantum consciousness transfer by accident while developing primitive artificial intelligence. The possibility that they had multiple parallel research programs was deeply troubling. I refer specifically to the research being conducted at facilities your species designates as MIT, CERN, the Tokyo Institute of Technology, The technology you call neural quantum bridging poses an existential threat to biological consciousness throughout the galaxy. Another pause. Zethkar could see data streams intensifying across Earth's communication networks. The humans were coordinating in real time, sharing information across their entire planet faster than most species could manage between neighboring cities. Ambassador, with all due respect, we're going to need more than a vague warning about existential threats. Could you provide specific details about how our research poses a danger to other species? Our scientists are quite curious about the theoretical framework you're operating under. Zethkar felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature-controlled environment of his ship. Curious? They were curious? When the Council of Species issued a formal warning, the appropriate response was immediate compliance, not scientific inquiry. The details are classified under Council Security Protocol. It is sufficient that 43 member species have unanimously agreed that your research must cease. You have 7 standard days to comply with this directive. The communication channel fell silent for nearly 30 seconds. When Santos spoke again, her voice carried a different quality entirely. Ambassador, I'm going to transfer you to Dr. Sarah Chen, our lead researcher on the Quantum Consciousness Project. She has some questions about your directive. Before Zethkar could object, the channel switched. A new voice appeared on the connection, speaking with the rapid cadence of someone accustomed to technical discussions. Ambassador Zethkar? Chen here. I've been reviewing our research data while you were speaking with the Secretary General. I'm hoping you can help me understand something. You mentioned that our research poses an existential threat to biological consciousness. Does this mean the Council has successfully created artificial consciousness using quantum substrate manipulation? The question hit Zethkar like a physical blow. Dr. Chen wasn't asking for clarification about the warning. She was probing for information about Council capabilities. The human scientist was treating this formal diplomatic ultimatum as an opportunity for data gathering. Dr. Chen, the specific technologies employed by Council species are not subject to discussion. Your compliance with the directive is not optional. I understand that, Ambassador, but here's what's puzzling me. If your concern is about the stability of consciousness, then you must have some experience with quantum consciousness transfer. The theoretical framework suggests that successful transfer would create a cascade effect across quantum-entangled neural networks. Have you observed this phenomenon in Council space? Zethkar's mandibles clicked involuntarily. Dr. Chen had just described the exact mechanism that had destroyed the Veltar homeworld 3 centuries ago. The fact that humanity had independently developed the theoretical framework for the most dangerous technology known to galactic civilization was precisely why the Council had issued its warning. Dr. Chen, your species' understanding of the implications is irrelevant. The research will cease, or the Council will take appropriate action to ensure galactic security. And what action would that be, exactly? In 40 years of diplomatic service, no species had ever asked him to clarify the Council's enforcement mechanisms. Economic sanctions, initially, followed by technological quarantine if necessary. In extreme cases, the Council has authorization to employ military intervention. I see. And how effective have these measures been against species with comparable technology to ours? Zethkar's translator array struggled with the human's tone. There was no fear, no anger, no desperation. Dr. Chen was asking technical questions about galactic warfare, as if she were discussing research methodology. Dr. Chen, no species with technology comparable to yours has ever required military intervention. All civilizations eventually recognize the wisdom of Council authority. That's interesting. So you're saying we'd be the first? The communication channel crackled with interference as data streams across Earth's networks suddenly intensified. Zethkar's sensors detected massive spikes in electromagnetic activity across the planet's surface. The humans were mobilizing something. Dr. Chen, I strongly advise against any precipitous action. The Council's military capabilities far exceed anything your species has developed. We're not questioning your military superiority. We're just trying to understand the parameters we're working with. Tell me, when the Council conducts military interventions, do you typically target planetary infrastructure or focus on eliminating research facilities? Chen discussed the destruction of her own planet sent warning signals cascading through Zethkar's neural implants. He had dealt with aggressive species before, with desperate species, with species that bargained and pleaded and threatened. But humanity was doing something unprecedented. They were treating the Council's ultimatum as a source of intelligence about potential enemies. Dr. Chen, military intervention typically involves the complete suppression of technological capability. Resistance is futile and results only in unnecessary casualties. Complete suppression? That would include our civilian infrastructure, I assume? Power generation, communication networks, transportation systems? If necessary, yes. And the timeline for this suppression? Are we talking about orbital bombardment, ground invasion, or something more sophisticated? Chen was conducting a systematic intelligence-gathering operation. Each question was designed to extract specific information about Council military doctrine and capabilities. The human wasn't seeking negotiation or expressing defiance. She was preparing for war. Dr. Chen, this conversation has strayed far from its intended purpose. The Council requires an answer to its directive within 7 standard days. Will humanity comply? When Dr. Chen spoke again, her voice carried a note of what Zethkar's translator identified as satisfaction. Ambassador, I'm transferring you back to Secretary General Santos. She'll be providing our official response. The channel switched again. Santos's voice returned, but something had changed in her tone as well. Ambassador Zethkar, I want to thank you for the detailed information you've provided. It's been extremely helpful for our decision-making process. Secretary General, do you have an answer regarding compliance with the Council directive? I'm transmitting our formal response now. Zethkar's communication array received a data packet containing what appeared to be an official document. As the translation matrix processed the text, he felt his circulatory system slow in shock. The document was formal, bearing the seals and signatures of every major government on Earth. But it wasn't a compliance agreement or a negotiation proposal. It was a declaration of war. Secretary General, surely there has been some translation error. This document appears to be a formal declaration of war against the Galactic Council and all member species. That's correct, Ambassador. Zethkar's 4 eyes focused simultaneously on the holographic display showing Earth. Across the planet's surface, energy signatures were spiking as installations came online. The humans had been preparing for this moment since the conversation began. Secretary General Santos, your species cannot possibly believe it can successfully oppose the combined might of 43 spacefaring civilizations. We know exactly what we're up against, and we've decided to fight anyway. The matter-of-fact way Santos delivered this statement sent chills through Zethkar's nervous system. The humans weren't acting out of ignorance or desperation. They had made a calculated decision to declare war on the galaxy's governing body. This is unprecedented, Zethkar said, his voice barely above a whisper. Yes, it is. We're rather proud of that. The communication channel filled with static as massive electromagnetic pulses erupted across Earth's surface. Whatever the humans were activating, it was operating on a scale that dwarfed their previous technological demonstrations. Secretary General, I must warn you that the Council will respond to this declaration with overwhelming force. Your cities will burn, your civilization will be reduced to rubble, and your species will be scattered across the galaxy as a warning to others. Santos's laugh was entirely inappropriate given the circumstances. Ambassador, you should probably know something about humans before you start making threats. We've been fighting wars against impossible odds for our entire history. We've faced extinction, natural disasters, plagues, and each other with weapons that could crack planets. And every time someone or something tries to tell us what we can't do, we make it our mission to prove them wrong. The energy signatures across Earth's surface were reaching levels that Zethkar's sensors couldn't properly categorize. Whatever the humans were building, it was operating on principles that his equipment couldn't analyze.
Your species' history of conflict is well documented, Secretary General.
But you have never faced an opponent with the resources of the Galactic Council. No, we haven't. And you've never faced an opponent who builds weapons while you're threatening them. The implications of that statement hit Zethkar like a physical blow. The humans hadn't been intimidated by his warning. They had been using the conversation to gather intelligence while simultaneously preparing for war. "This conversation is concluded," Zethkar said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "The Council will respond to your declaration within 72 hours. Ambassador, before you go, Dr. S. Wells, Chen wanted me to give you a message."
Despite every diplomatic protocol screaming at him to terminate the connection immediately, Zethkar found himself waiting for the message. "She says thank you for confirming that quantum consciousness transfer creates cascade effects across neural networks."
That was the last piece of data we needed to complete our research. Zethkar stared at the holographic display of Earth for several minutes, watching energy signatures pulse across the planet's surface like the heartbeat of some vast organism preparing for battle. The humans had just declared war on the galaxy and thanked him for helping them complete their research. As he began composing his report to the Council, one thought kept circulating through his mind. In his 40 years of diplomatic service, he had delivered warnings to hundreds of species across known space. Every one of them had eventually submitted to Council authority. Humanity was about to become the first exception, and they seemed genuinely excited about it. Part 2. The Council chamber on Centauri Prime had not witnessed such chaos in over 2 centuries. Representatives from 43 species filled the vast crystalline amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony that the universal translators struggled to process. Emergency sessions were rare enough, but an emergency session called to address a declaration of war from a primitive species was unprecedented in galactic history. High Counselor Vexani called for order with a harmonic resonance that cut through the noise like a blade through silk. Her crystalline form caught and refracted the chamber's bioluminescent lighting, creating patterns that conveyed authority to species across the electromagnetic spectrum. "Fellow counselors, we convene this emergency session to address the situation developing in the Sol system." Ambassador Zethkar has provided his complete report, which has been distributed to all delegations. The Thraxian representative, a hulking creature whose exoskeleton gleamed like polished obsidian, rose from his position. "High Counselor, with respect, this situation hardly warrants an emergency session. A single primitive world declaring war on the Council is amusing, not threatening." Murmurs of agreement rippled through various sections of the chamber. The Aquari delegation expressed their concurrence through synchronized color changes, while the ethereal collective communicated their support via modulated electromagnetic pulses. Ambassador Zethkar stood slowly, his 4 eyes reflecting the ambient light as he surveyed the chamber. "Counselor Thraxel, I share your assessment of humanity's primitive status. However, there are aspects of this situation that require immediate attention." High Counselor Vexani gestured for silence as the chamber's attention focused on Zethkar. "Proceed, Ambassador. Share your concerns with the full Council." Zethkar activated his personal holographic display, showing the energy readings he had collected during his conversation with the humans. "During my communication with Earth's representatives, I detected massive energy spikes across their planetary surface. These signatures suggest they were activating some form of planetary defense network in real time." The Velnari representative, her serpentine form coiled around her council platform, hissed in what the translators rendered as skeptical amusement. "Ambassador, surely you're not suggesting that a species barely capable of interstellar communication could pose any threat to Council forces? Furthermore, during our conversation, their lead researcher demonstrated knowledge of quantum consciousness transfer cascade effects. They understand the theoretical framework behind the most dangerous technology in known space." The chamber fell silent. The destruction of the Veltar homeworld 300 years earlier remained a closely guarded Council secret, known only to the highest levels of government among member species. The fact that humanity had independently developed the theoretical understanding was deeply troubling. Counselor Thraxel's mandibles clicked in agitation. Even if they understand the theory, implementing quantum consciousness transfer requires materials and energy sources far beyond their technological base. The rare earth elements alone would require mining operations across multiple star systems.
That's what I initially believed, Zethkar replied, manipulating his holographic display to show new data.
However, intelligence reports from our monitoring stations suggest otherwise. The display showed asteroid mining operations in the outer Sol system, massive construction projects on Mars, and energy collection arrays positioned between Earth and its star. The scale of human industrial activity had increased exponentially in the 18 months since first contact. These images were captured by our passive monitoring systems over the past 6 months. The humans have established mining operations throughout their solar system and are extracting resources at rates that exceed the industrial capacity of most council member worlds. The Zephyrian delegate, a gossamer being that communicated through controlled atmospheric disturbances, created patterns that the translators interpreted as profound concern. How is this possible? Their technology was barely sufficient for primitive spaceflight when first contact was established. Benecoup highlighted specific sections of the display. Analysis suggests they've been reverse engineering Council technology from our communication arrays. Every diplomatic exchange has been an intelligence gathering operation for them. They've been studying us while we've been dismissing them. High Counselor Vexenai's crystalline structure shifted to a deeper hue, indicating serious consideration. What is your assessment of their current technological capabilities, Ambassador? Based on energy signatures and construction patterns, I estimate they've achieved technological parity with early Council member species. Their industrial base is crude but effective, and their rate of technological advancement is unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The implications of Zethkar's assessment sent waves of concern through the chamber. A species achieving such rapid technological development was theoretically possible but had never been observed. Most civilizations required centuries to advance from primitive spaceflight to interstellar capability. Counselor Silthara uncoiled slightly, her scaled head weaving in agitation. Even assuming your assessment is accurate, Ambassador, a single world cannot threaten the combined resources of the Council. We command the industrial output of over 40,000 systems. Under normal circumstances, I would agree, Zethkar replied. However, the humans are not operating under normal circumstances. They've declared war knowing they cannot win through conventional means. This suggests they have developed asymmetric warfare capabilities. The mention of asymmetric warfare caused visible distress among several delegations. The Council's military doctrine was built around overwhelming force projection and technological superiority. An opponent that refused to engage on conventional terms posed tactical problems that the Council military had not faced in centuries. The synthetic intelligence representative, a geometric construct of living metal, projected its communication directly into the chamber's neural interface systems. Query: what specific asymmetric capabilities have been identified? Analysis requires concrete data parameters. Zethkar's display shifted to show communication intercepts from Earth's global network. During our exchange, the human scientist, Dr. Chen, systematically extracted information about Council military doctrine, deployment timelines, and target prioritization. She was conducting intelligence operations while I was delivering our ultimatum. Furthermore, Zethkar continued, their formal declaration of war was already prepared before our conversation began. They had decided to fight before hearing our terms. This suggests a level of strategic planning that extends beyond their apparent technological capabilities. The chamber erupted in agitated communication as representatives processed the implications. A species that had prepared for war before receiving the Council's ultimatum was demonstrating strategic thinking patterns that didn't match their primitive classification. High Counselor Vexani restored order with a more forceful harmonic pulse. Ambassador, what is your recommendation for Council response? Immediate military intervention, Zethkar replied without hesitation. Every day we delay allows them to advance their technological capabilities. If they complete quantum consciousness transfer research, the potential consequences for galactic stability are incalculable. Counselor Thraxel's exoskeleton shifted to a more aggressive configuration. I concur with immediate intervention. However, I recommend complete planetary sterilization rather than conventional military suppression. A species this unpredictable should not be allowed to survive as a potential future threat. The suggestion of planetary sterilization caused immediate controversy. Several delegations expressed strong objections through their various communication methods, while others indicated support for the most decisive action possible. The Ethereal Collective's representative manifested a visible form to address the chamber directly. The destruction of an entire species based on potential future threat assessment violates fundamental council principles. We cannot authorize genocide as a preventive measure. With respect to my ethereal colleague, Councillor Selthara interjected, the Velter homeworld was destroyed by uncontrolled quantum consciousness transfer. If humanity completes their research, we could face a cascade failure that affects every biological consciousness in the galaxy. Planetary sterilization may be the only option that guarantees galactic safety. High Counselor Vexani considered the arguments while accessing historical data through her neural implants. The Veltar incident remained the Council's greatest failure, a technological disaster that had eliminated an entire civilization and created a dead zone in space that remained quarantined 3 centuries later. The chair recognizes the gravity of both positions, Vexani stated. However, Council protocol requires graduated response to military threats. We will authorize immediate deployment of the Third Fleet to the Sol system with orders to suppress human military capabilities and secure all quantum consciousness transfer research. The decision represented a compromise that satisfied neither faction completely but followed established Council procedures. Military intervention would demonstrate Council authority while avoiding the political complications of authorizing genocide. Councillor Thraxel's mandibles clicked in frustration. High Counselor, if conventional military intervention fails, will the Council consider more decisive action? That decision will be made based on operational results, Vexani replied diplomatically. Fleet Admiral Kethvar will have authorization to escalate response levels if initial suppression efforts prove insufficient. The mention of Fleet Admiral Kethvar caused a subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere. The Vorthan military commander had never lost a campaign in 40 years of service and commanded the respect of warriors across the galaxy. If anyone could handle a primitive species that had delusions of military capability, it was Kethvar. The synthetic intelligence representative projected another query: timeline parameters for military deployment. Human technological advancement rate suggests time-critical operational requirements. The Third Fleet can reach the Sol system within 15 standard days. Current intelligence suggests the humans are constructing planetary defense installations, but they cannot possibly complete meaningful fortifications in that time frame. Furthermore, Zethkar continued, their declaration of war was clearly a desperate bluff designed to buy time for their research. Once they face actual Council military forces, they will undoubtedly seek immediate surrender terms. High Counselor Vexani's crystalline structure pulsed with decision-making patterns. The Council authorizes immediate deployment of the Third Fleet under Admiral Kethvar's command. Rules of engagement will permit all necessary force to suppress human military capability and secure dangerous research materials. The formal authorization rippled through the chamber as representatives registered their species' acceptance of the decision. Within hours, the most powerful military force in galactic history would begin moving toward a small blue world that had made the mistake of challenging Council authority. As the emergency session concluded, Ambassador Zethkar remained in the chamber studying the tactical displays showing Earth's continued industrial activity. The energy signatures from the human homeworld continued to increase, suggesting they were accelerating their construction projects rather than seeking diplomatic solutions. Councillor Silthara approached Zethkar's position, her serpentine form moving with predatory grace. Ambassador, do you truly believe this primitive species poses a significant threat to Council forces? Zethkar considered the question while watching energy spikes pulse across Earth's surface. Counselor, In my professional assessment, the humans cannot win a conventional war against the Council. Their technology is insufficient, their numbers are limited, and their understanding of galactic warfare is primitive. However, he continued, his voice dropping to a more concerned tone, they declared war anyway. A species that chooses to fight when they know they cannot win is operating under assumptions we don't understand. That makes them unpredictable, and unpredictable enemies are always dangerous. Counselor Silthera's scaled head tilted in consideration. Admiral Kethvar has never faced an unpredictable enemy. His tactical doctrine assumes rational opponents who will surrender when faced with overwhelming force. The humans have already demonstrated they're not rational by Council standards, Zethkar replied. Dr. Chen thanked me for helping them complete their research while I was threatening to destroy their civilization. That level of confidence in the face of annihilation suggests they know something we don't. As the two Council representatives discussed the implications, neither noticed the subtle electromagnetic pulses emanating from Earth's direction. Dude. The humans had begun transmitting on frequencies that Council monitoring equipment couldn't detect, coordinating activities across their solar system with technologies that shouldn't have existed. Fleet Admiral Kethvar was indeed preparing to face an enemy unlike any in his extensive military career. The humans weren't just refusing to surrender, they were actively preparing to fight a war they mathematically could not win. And somewhere in the depths of space between Earth and Mars, construction continued on projects that would redefine the very concept of asymmetric warfare. Part 3. Fleet Admiral Kethvar stood on the command bridge of the CNS Dominion, watching the tactical displays that showed the Third Fleet's approach to the Sol system. 350 vessels representing the finest military technology of 43 civilizations stretched across space in perfect formation. Dreadnoughts that could crack moons flanked by cruisers capable of sterilizing continents, all supported by destroyer squadrons that moved through space like schools of predatory fish. In 40 years of military service, Kethvar had never assembled such overwhelming force against a single primitive world. The Third Fleet alone possessed enough firepower to reduce Earth's crust to molten slag within hours. Yet something about this mission felt different from his previous campaigns against rebellious species. "Admiral," called Commander Vashti from the sensor station, her insectoid form clicking with agitation. "Long-range scans of the Sol system are showing unusual activity patterns." "Define unusual, Commander." "Sir, we're detecting massive construction projects throughout the system, not just on Earth, but on Mars. Several asteroid mining facilities and what appears to be a large installation positioned between Earth and their star." The tactical display updated to show the full scope of human activity across the Sol system. Mining operations stripped asteroids bare while construction fleets assembled structures of unprecedented size. Energy collection arrays formed geometric patterns around the system's star, channeling power to installations that shouldn't have been possible with human technology. Analysis suggests they've increased their industrial capacity by over 3,000% since our last intelligence update, Commander Vashti continued. At current rates of expansion, they'll achieve industrial parity with mid-tier Council worlds within 2 standard years. Kethvar studied the displays with growing concern. A species advancing this rapidly was operating outside normal technological development parameters. The humans were either receiving assistance from unknown sources or had discovered scientific principles that Council science considered theoretical impossibilities. "Commander, what is the nature of these construction projects? Are we looking at military installations?" "Unknown, Admiral. The energy signatures don't match known weapon systems, but they also don't match any civilian infrastructure in our databases. Whatever they're building, it's using technologies we can't classify." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council's military doctrine was built on comprehensive knowledge of enemy capabilities. Facing an opponent using unclassifiable technology created tactical problems that the fleet had never encountered. Captain Mordek, the fleet's chief tactical officer, activated his personal display terminal. "Admiral, I've completed analysis of human communication intercepts. Their coordination protocols suggest they're operating under a unified command structure that encompasses their entire species.
Kethvar turned his attention to Mordek's analysis. The Zenturan officer's tactical assessments had guided the fleet through dozens of successful campaigns.
Explain, Captain. Sir, most species maintain separate civilian and military communication networks, with limited coordination between different planetary governments. The humans appear to have eliminated these distinctions entirely. Every civilian facility is receiving real-time tactical updates, and every military installation is coordinating with scientific research centers. Mordek highlighted specific communication patterns on his display. Furthermore, their industrial facilities are being operated by personnel with military training, while their research scientists are receiving strategic briefings typically reserved for combat commanders. They've transformed their entire civilization into a unified war machine. The concept of an entire species operating as a coordinated military force was theoretically possible but practically unprecedented. Most civilizations maintained clear distinctions between civilian and military populations to preserve societal stability during conflicts.
Admiral, interrupted Commander Vashti, we're receiving a transmission from the Sol system. It's addressed directly to you. Kethvar's 4 pupils contracted simultaneously. Direct communication with enemy commanders before battle was highly unusual, especially from a species that had never engaged in interstellar warfare. Put it through, Commander. The main display activated, revealing a human female wearing what appeared to be a military uniform. Her bearing suggested command authority, though her apparent age seemed inconsistent with senior military rank. Fleet Admiral Kethvar. I am General Sarah Chen, Supreme Commander of Terran Defense Forces. I wanted to speak with you before you enter our system. Kethvar recognized the name from Ambassador Zethkar's report. Dr. Chen had become General Chen in the span of 2 weeks, another indication of how rapidly human society was adapting to warfare. General Chen, I am Admiral Kethvar of the Council 3rd Fleet. I assume you're contacting me to discuss surrender terms. Chen's expression remained neutral, though Kethvar's cultural analysis software detected what appeared to be amusement. That actually, Admiral, I'm contacting you to provide a professional courtesy. We wanted to inform you about the tactical situation you'll be entering. Kethvar had received surrender offers, desperate pleas for negotiation, and occasional threats from cornered enemies, but no enemy commander had ever offered him a tactical briefing. General Chen, your tactical situation is self-evident. You face the combined military might of 43 spacefaring civilizations. Resistance will only increase casualties among your population. Admiral, that's exactly what I wanted to discuss. You see, we've spent the last 2 weeks studying every available record of Council military doctrine, and we've identified some significant tactical vulnerabilities in your approach. Kethvar felt his circulatory system slow in shock. Chen was critiquing Council military doctrine while facing annihilation by the most powerful fleet in galactic history. General, perhaps you should focus on protecting your civilians rather than analyzing tactical theory. In fact, we've evacuated every major population center on Earth to secure facilities throughout the system. Our civilian population is now distributed across 47 different installations, each one defended by technologies your sensors can't classify. Chen activated her own display showing real-time images of massive space stations positioned throughout the Sol system. Each installation appeared to house millions of humans in self-sustaining environments that rivaled anything the Council had constructed. Furthermore, Chen continued, we've completed our quantum consciousness transfer research. Every human consciousness now exists in both biological and quantum substrates simultaneously. Even if you destroy our physical bodies, our species will survive to continue the war. The implications of Chen's statement sent shockwaves through Kethvar's command staff. Successful quantum consciousness transfer had been theoretical for centuries. If humanity had actually achieved practical implementation, they had become functionally immortal. General Chen, quantum consciousness transfer is impossible with your technological base. The energy requirements alone exceed your planetary generation capacity.
You're absolutely right, Admiral. That's why we're not using planetary generation capacity. Chen's display updated to show the massive solar collection arrays surrounding Earth's star. We're using stellar generation capacity. Those arrays are collecting approximately 30% of our sun's total energy output and channeling it to our quantum substrate networks. Kefar stared at the display in disbelief. The humans had built a stellar engineering project in 2 weeks. The technological leap required was beyond anything in recorded galactic history. How is this possible? Your species barely possessed interstellar communication 18 months ago. Chen's expression shifted to what Kethvar's analysis software identified as pride. Admiral, you made a critical error in your intelligence assessment. You assume that a species' current technological level represents their maximum potential. Humans don't work that way. When we're faced with extinction, we don't just adapt existing technologies. We invent entirely new fields of science. In the past 2 weeks, we've revolutionized quantum engineering, stellar mechanics, and consciousness transfer theory. We've rebuilt our entire civilization around technologies that didn't exist when you issued your ultimatum. The command bridge fell silent as Kethvar processed Chen's explanation. A species that could reinvent themselves at the technological level within weeks wasn't just unprecedented, it was theoretically impossible according to known laws of societal development. General Chen, even assuming your claims are accurate, you still cannot defeat the Third Fleet in conventional warfare. Our vessels possess weapons that can destroy planets. Admiral, that brings me to the main reason for this communication. We want to make sure you understand the tactical situation before you commit to an engagement. Chen's display updated again, showing schematic diagrams of Council fleet formations and weapon systems. The level of detail suggested intelligence-gathering capabilities that exceeded anything a primitive species should possess. We've analyzed your fleet composition and identified critical vulnerabilities in your tactical doctrine. Your ships are designed for orbital bombardment and fleet-to-fleet combat. They're not optimized for the type of warfare we're prepared to conduct. What type of warfare would that be, General? We're not going to meet your fleet in open combat. We're going to attack your ships from directions that don't exist in normal space. Kethvar's tactical training couldn't process Chen's statement. Attacks from non-existent directions violated fundamental principles of physics and warfare. General, that's impossible. Combat must occur within the constraints of normal space-time. Admiral, we've moved beyond normal space-time constraints. Our quantum consciousness transfer technology allows us to project force through quantum substrate manipulation. We can attack your ships from parallel quantum dimensions. The concept of parallel dimension warfare existed only in the most theoretical scientific literature. The practical implementation would require technologies so advanced that they bordered on magical thinking. General Chen, I must ask you directly, are you bluffing? No species in galactic history has achieved the technological capabilities you're describing. Shen's expression became completely serious. Admiral, humans don't bluff about warfare. When we say we can do something, we do it. When we say we will fight, we fight. And when we say we will win, we find a way to win. But to answer your question directly, no, we're not bluffing. Would you like a demonstration? Before Kethvar could respond, alarms began blaring across the command bridge. Every sensor station erupted in activity as massive energy surges appeared throughout the fleet's formation. Admiral, Commander Vashti called out in panic, quantum tunneling events are manifesting inside our ship hulls. Something is materializing directly inside our vessels. Kethvar turned to his tactical displays and felt his warriors' confidence collapse. Throughout the Third Fleet, small metallic objects were appearing inside ship corridors, engineering sections, and command bridges. The objects weren't weapons. They were clearly harmless monitoring devices, but their presence proved that human forces could bypass every defensive system the Council possessed. General Chen, Kethvar said, his voice carefully controlled, your point is taken. Remove your devices from my ships. Of course, Admiral, we're not trying to damage your vessels. We just wanted to demonstrate capability. The monitoring devices vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving no trace of their presence except in the memories of the fleet's crew members who had witnessed the impossible. "Admiral," Chen continued, "we wanted you to understand the tactical situation before you make your final approach to Earth. You're entering a battle space where the normal rules of warfare no longer apply. We can attack from directions your sensors can't detect. We can appear inside your ships at will, and we can survive the destruction of our physical forms. This isn't a conventional military engagement anymore. This is a new type of warfare, and we wrote the rule book." Kethvar stared at the tactical displays showing his impossible-to-defeat fleet suddenly rendered vulnerable by an enemy that could attack from parallel dimensions. In 40 years of military service, he had never faced an opponent with capabilities that exceeded his understanding of physics. "General Chen, what are your terms? What do you want from the Council?" Chen's laugh was entirely inappropriate for a military negotiation. "Admiral, we're not surrendering. We're offering you the opportunity to withdraw your fleet and return to Council space with the message that humanity will continue our research as we see fit.
And if we refuse, then we'll demonstrate that asymmetric quantum warfare isn't just a theoretical concept."
Your fleet will return to Council space as wreckage, and the galaxy will learn that humanity doesn't accept ultimatums from anyone. The communication channel closed, leaving Kethvar staring at displays that showed a tactical situation unlike anything in galactic military history. The humans had transformed themselves from a primitive species to a technologically superior force in 2 weeks, and they were offering him the chance to retreat rather than face annihilation. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Kethvar found himself considering whether the Council had made a critical error in judgment. The humans weren't just refusing to surrender. They had evolved beyond the need to surrender. Part 4. The Sol System had become a theater of impossible warfare. Admiral Kethvar stood in his command center, watching tactical displays that showed his fleet scattered across local space while human forces operated according to physics that shouldn't exist. 3 days had passed since General Chen's demonstration, and the Third Fleet had not advanced closer than 2 light hours to Earth. The delay was necessary. Every probe sent toward the inner system encountered defensive measures that operated outside known scientific principles. Energy weapons that fired through parallel dimensions, defensive barriers that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, and human vessels that appeared to phase in and out of normal space-time at will. "Admiral," reported Commander Vashti, her insectoid form trembling with nervous energy, "the Council is demanding immediate updates on our operational status. High Counselor Vexani has transmitted 3 priority communications in the past hour." Kethvar considered his response while studying displays that showed energy signatures beyond his equipment's ability to analyze. How could he explain to the Council that humanity had achieved technological superiority in areas that Council science considered theoretical impossibilities? "Commander, transmit the following message to Zentari Prime. Third Fleet has encountered unexpected tactical complications. Human forces are employing technologies outside established scientific parameters. Request immediate deployment of Science Division assets for analysis of enemy capabilities." The careful wording would convey the gravity of the situation without admitting that the galaxy's most powerful military force had been effectively neutralized by a primitive species. Political considerations required diplomatic language, even when reporting tactical disasters. "Admiral," interrupted Captain Mordek from the tactical station, "we're receiving another transmission from General Chen. She's requesting immediate communication." Kethvar felt his warrior's instincts react with a mixture of anticipation and concern. Chen's previous communications had demonstrated capabilities that redefined the possible. What new impossibility would humanity reveal this time? "Put her through, Captain." The main display activated, revealing General Chen in what appeared to be a command center filled with holographic displays showing real-time data from across the galaxy. The scope of information visible behind her suggested surveillance capabilities that exceeded Council intelligence networks. "Admiral Kethvar, thank you for accepting this communication. I wanted to discuss the current tactical situation and propose a solution that benefits both our civilizations. Kethvar noted that Chen no longer appeared to be operating from a terrestrial facility. The background displays suggested she was aboard a vessel or station that existed in multiple dimensional phases simultaneously. General Chen, the Council has authorized me to negotiate terms for human surrender. We are prepared to offer significant concessions in exchange for immediate cessation of hostilities. Chen's expression shifted to what Kethvar's analysis software identified as genuine surprise. Admiral, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about our current positions. We're not seeking surrender terms from either side. We're operating under completely different strategic objectives. Explain, Admiral. While your fleet has been positioned at the edge of our system, we've been conducting reconnaissance operations throughout Council space. Our quantum consciousness transfer technology allows us to project intelligence assets across galactic distances instantaneously. Chen activated a display that showed real-time surveillance data from dozens of Council worlds. Military installations, industrial facilities, and governmental centers appeared in perfect detail, indicating that human forces had somehow penetrated the most secure locations in galactic civilization. We've spent the past 3 days studying every aspect of Council society, technology, and military capability. What we've discovered has fundamentally changed our strategic assessment. Kethvar felt his circulatory system slow as the implications became clear. If humanity possessed real-time intelligence about every Council world, they held tactical advantages that made conventional military response impossible. General surveillance of Council territories constitutes an act of war against all member species. Admiral, we're already at war with all member species. That was established when the Council issued its ultimatum. What we've learned from our reconnaissance is that the Council's authority rests on technological superiority that we've now exceeded. Show comparative analysis charts between human and Council technologies. In every category, energy generation, material science, quantum mechanics, consciousness transfer, humanity had achieved capabilities that surpassed the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Furthermore, our analysis indicates that Council member species are held in their current technological states through artificial limitations imposed by Council governance. Most species possess the scientific knowledge to advance beyond their current capabilities, but Council regulations prevent technological development. The Council's primary function was maintaining technological balance between species to prevent warfare and ensure peaceful coexistence. General Chen, technological regulation is necessary to prevent conflicts between species with asymmetric capabilities. The Council system has maintained galactic peace for over 6 centuries. Admiral, that's exactly the problem. The Council hasn't maintained peace, it's maintained stagnation. Our analysis shows that every member species has the potential for technological advancement beyond their current state, but Council regulations prevent scientific progress. Chen activated another display showing technological development curves for various Council species. In every case, advancement had plateaued immediately after joining the Council, despite continued scientific research and resource availability. The Council system doesn't prevent war, Admiral. It prevents evolution. And evolution is what separates successful species from extinct ones. If Chen's analysis was accurate, the Council had been artificially suppressing technological development across the galaxy for centuries. The implications for galactic stability were catastrophic. General, even assuming your analysis is correct, the Council system has prevented interspecies warfare for 600 years. That stability has value that exceeds technological advancement. Admiral, we've analyzed Council military interventions over the past 6 centuries. In every case, the Council has suppressed species that achieved significant technological advancement independent of Council guidance. The system doesn't prevent warfare. It prevents competition. Chen's display showed a comprehensive analysis of Council military history. Pattern recognition software highlighted consistent intervention against species that had achieved breakthrough technologies, regardless of their peaceful intentions. The Council maintains authority through technological superiority, not diplomatic consensus. Any species that threatens that superiority faces military suppression. The galaxy isn't peaceful, Admiral, it's terrified. The accuracy of Chen's assessment was undeniable. Kethvar had personally commanded forces in dozens of peacekeeping operations that had targeted species whose only crime was advancing beyond Council-approved technological levels. General Chen, what are you proposing? The dissolution of galactic government? Not dissolution, Admiral, evolution. We're proposing that the Council accept technological competition as a natural process rather than a threat to stability. Chen activated a new display showing what appeared to be a comprehensive plan for galactic governmental reform. The scope of detail suggested that humanity had developed complete alternatives to the existing Council structure. We've designed governmental frameworks that allow for unrestricted technological development while maintaining interspecies cooperation. Species would advance according to their capabilities rather than artificial limitations, and cooperation would be based on mutual benefit rather than enforced compliance. Kethvar studied the proposed frameworks with professional interest. The concepts were theoretically sound, but implementation would require fundamental changes to galactic civilization that exceeded the scope of military negotiation. General, assuming the Council were willing to consider such reforms, what guarantee do we have that unrestricted technological development won't lead to interspecies warfare? Humanity possesses technologies that could destroy every Council world simultaneously, yet we're proposing governmental reform rather than conquest. That should answer your question about our intentions. The point was valid. If humanity truly possessed the capabilities they had demonstrated, they could indeed destroy Council civilization rather than negotiate with it. The fact that they were seeking diplomatic solutions suggested strategic thinking that transcended mere military dominance. General Chen, what specific terms are you proposing? Complete technological freedom for all galactic species, dissolution of artificial development restrictions, and establishment of cooperative frameworks based on voluntary participation rather than enforced compliance. Chen's display updated to show specific implementation timelines and transition procedures. The level of detail suggested months of planning rather than improvised negotiation. In return, humanity will share our quantum consciousness transfer technology with any species that requests it, along with the scientific principles that enabled our rapid technological advancement. Humanity was proposing to give away the technologies that had made them superior to the entire galaxy in exchange for governmental reforms that would benefit all species equally. General, why would humanity surrender its technological advantages? Admiral, because technological advancement is meaningless if it's not shared. A species that hoards knowledge becomes stagnant, just like the Council system. Progress requires competition, cooperation, and the free exchange of ideas. Furthermore, we're not surrendering our advantages, we're accelerating beyond them. By the time other species master quantum consciousness transfer, we'll have developed technologies that make our current capabilities look primitive. Kethvar realized that humanity wasn't just proposing governmental reform, they were proposing a complete transformation of galactic civilization based on unrestricted technological competition. General Chen, the Council will never accept terms that eliminate its authority over galactic governance. Admiral, the Council doesn't have a choice. We've already demonstrated that their authority rests on technological superiority that we've exceeded. They can either accept reform voluntarily or face replacement involuntarily. Chen's display showed real-time tactical assessments of Council military assets throughout the galaxy. Every fleet, every defensive installation, every strategic resource was highlighted with vulnerabilities that human forces could exploit. We don't want to destroy the Council, Admiral, but we won't allow it to prevent the natural evolution of galactic civilization. The choice is adaptation or obsolescence. The communication channel fell silent as Kethvar processed the implications of humanity's ultimatum. A primitive species had achieved technological transcendence in 2 weeks and was now dictating terms to the galaxy's governing body. General Chen, I will transmit your proposals to the Council for consideration. However, I must warn you that such fundamental reforms will require unanimous consent from all member species. Admiral, we're not requesting consent, we're announcing transition. The reforms will be implemented with or without Council cooperation. We're simply offering the opportunity for peaceful transition rather than forced compliance. The communication ended, leaving Kethvar staring at tactical displays that showed the Third Fleet maintaining position at the edge of a system controlled by forces that had redefined the nature of power itself. For the first time in galactic history, the Council faced an opponent that didn't seek to defeat them. Humanity wanted to evolve them, and they had the capability to enforce evolution whether the galaxy wanted it or not. Part 5. The Council Chamber on Zentari Prime had been in continuous session for 7 days. Representatives from 43 species debated humanity's ultimatum while their homeworlds reported unprecedented technological phenomena that defied explanation. Across the galaxy, human consciousness projections were appearing in research facilities, offering scientific knowledge that advanced entire fields of study within hours. High Counselor Vexani stood before the assembled delegates, her crystalline form reflecting the chaotic energy patterns that now characterized Council space. Every member world was experiencing simultaneous technological revolution as human knowledge spread through quantum consciousness networks that operated outside normal spacetime. Fellow counselors, we convene this final session to address the reality of our current situation. Humanity has not merely challenged Council authority, they have redefined the nature of civilization itself. The Chamber's universal translators struggle to process the volume of simultaneous communication as representatives express their species' responses to the unprecedented crisis. Fear, anger, desperation, and occasionally excitement filled the crystalline amphitheater with chaotic energy. Ambassador Zethkar rose from his position, his 4 eyes reflecting exhaustion from days of continuous crisis management. High Counselor, the situation has evolved beyond our ability to control through traditional means. Human consciousness projections are now active on every Council world, offering technological advancement that our species cannot refuse. The holographic displays throughout the chamber showed real-time reports from across Council space. Human scientists were collaborating with local researchers on projects that promised to advance civilizations by centuries within months. Energy generation systems that surpassed stellar engineering, transportation technologies that operated through dimensional manipulation, and consciousness enhancement procedures that eliminated the boundaries between individual minds. Counselor Thraxel's exoskeleton had shifted to deep amber, indicating extreme agitation. High Counselor, humanity is conducting technological contamination on a galactic scale. They're offering knowledge that will destabilize every aspect of established civilization. Yet our scientists cannot resist accepting their assistance, added Counselor Silthara, her serpentine form coiled in distress. The potential for advancement is beyond anything we could achieve through traditional research. Humanity is accelerating our evolution whether we consent or not. The reports from member worlds painted a picture of civilization transforming at unprecedented rates. Species that had remained technologically static for centuries were achieving breakthrough discoveries daily. The artificial limitations that had maintained galactic stability were dissolving as human knowledge spread through every research network. The ethereal collective's representative manifested its most substantial form to address the chamber directly. The fundamental question before this council is not whether humanity's reforms are beneficial, but whether we possess the capability to resist them. Our analysis suggests that opposition is no longer strategically viable. High Counselor Vexani accessed the latest reports through her neural implants, processing information that challenged every assumption about galactic governance. Ambassador Zethkar, what is Admiral Kethvar's current assessment of military options? Zethkar activated his personal display showing tactical analyses that confirmed the Council's worst fears. Admiral Kethvar reports that conventional military response is impossible. Human forces operate through technologies that exceed our understanding of physics. Furthermore, they have demonstrated the ability to appear anywhere in Council space instantaneously. More significantly, Zethkar continued, they are offering military cooperation rather than conquest. human tactical officers are providing strategic consultation to our forces, sharing knowledge that enhances our defensive capabilities rather than exploiting our weaknesses. The concept of an enemy enhancing their opponent's military capabilities was beyond traditional strategic understanding. Humanity wasn't seeking to defeat the Council, they were upgrading it. The synthetic intelligence representative projected its analysis directly into the Chamber's network. Observation: human strategic objectives appear focused on accelerating galactic technological development rather than establishing political dominance. Their actions suggest post-scarcity civilizational goals that transcend resource competition.
Counselor Thraxel's mandibles clicked in frustration.
How do we negotiate with opponents who don't want anything we can provide? Traditional diplomacy requires competing interests that can be balanced through compromise. Perhaps, suggested the Velnere representative, we should consider that humanity isn't offering negotiation, they're offering partnership. The suggestion sent ripples of consideration through the chamber. A species that possessed overwhelming technological superiority but sought cooperation rather than conquest was operating under motivational frameworks that didn't match any known pattern of interspecies relations. High Counselor Vexani called for order as the chamber's communication systems reached capacity. Fellow counselors, we must address the central question. Do we accept humanity's proposed reforms or attempt resistance? I believe I can provide additional perspective on that question. Every representative turned toward the main display as it activated to reveal General Sarah Chen. But this wasn't a holographic transmission. Chen was physically present in the chamber, having somehow bypassed every security system the Council possessed. General Chen, Vexani said, her crystalline structure shifting to patterns of profound surprise. Your presence here is impossible. This chamber is protected by quantum isolation fields that prevent unauthorized access. Chen smiled while activating a portable display that showed schematic diagrams of the Council chamber's security systems. High Counselor, quantum isolation fields are effective against conventional intrusion, but we're not operating under conventional physics anymore. Furthermore, Chen continued, I'm not actually here physically. This is a quantum consciousness projection that exists in your local space-time while my primary consciousness remains in the Sol system. We've eliminated the traditional boundaries between presence and distance. The implications of Chen's statement were staggering. If humanity had achieved truly distributed consciousness that could manifest anywhere instantaneously, they had transcended the physical limitations that define civilization itself. General Chen, Vexani said carefully, your presence in our most secure facility demonstrates capabilities that exceed our understanding. What are your intentions? High Counselor, I'm here to provide final clarification about the transition process and answer any remaining questions about humanity's proposals. Chen activated her display to show comprehensive timelines for the proposed reforms. Every aspect of galactic governance was addressed with implementation schedules that suggested months of detailed planning. The technological sharing process is already underway. Within 30 days, every Council species will have access to quantum consciousness transfer technology, dimensional manipulation capabilities, and post-scarcity resource generation systems. Political reforms will be implemented gradually over the following year, with voluntary adoption of new governmental frameworks based on cooperative development rather than hierarchical control. General Chen, what guarantee do we have that humanity will not use its technological superiority to dominate other species once the transition is complete? Chen's expression became completely serious. Counselor Thraxel, domination requires scarcity. When every species possesses unlimited energy, infinite resources, and distributed consciousness, the concept of dominance becomes meaningless. You can't control someone who doesn't need anything you can provide. Furthermore, technological superiority is temporary. By sharing our current knowledge, we accelerate everyone else's development, which creates competitive pressure that drives our own advancement. Within a few years, multiple species will possess technologies that exceed our current capabilities. The ethereal collective's representative pulsed with patterns indicating deep consideration. Query: What motivates humanity to accelerate potential competition rather than maintaining technological advantage? Advancement requires challenge, competition, and the free exchange of ideas. A species that maintains superiority through artificial restrictions becomes stagnant. We've seen this pattern in the council system. Technological development plateaued because there was no competitive pressure to advance. Chen activated another display showing projected technological development curves under the reformed system. Every species showed exponential advancement once artificial limitations were removed, with breakthrough discoveries occurring through cooperative research that exceeded individual capabilities. Evolution is a competitive process, but it's most effective when it's also cooperative. We're not trying to create a galactic hierarchy, we're trying to create a galactic renaissance. High Counselor Vexani processed Chen's explanation while accessing historical data about periods of rapid technological advancement. The pattern was consistent. The greatest scientific breakthroughs occurred during periods of intense competition. General Chen, assuming the Council accepts your reforms, what role would humanity play in the new governmental structure? The same role as every other species, voluntary participation based on mutual benefit.
We don't seek authority over galactic governance, High Counselor.
We seek the elimination of artificial authority entirely. Chen's display updated to show the proposed governmental framework in detail. Instead of hierarchical control, the system operated through voluntary cooperation networks, where species participated based on shared interests and complementary capabilities. Leadership would be functional rather than political. Species would coordinate specific projects based on expertise and interest rather than submitting to permanent governmental control. The concept represented a fundamental transformation of galactic civilization from hierarchical authority to distributed cooperation. Every species would maintain sovereignty while participating in voluntary networks that facilitated shared advancement. High Counselor, Chen continued, the choice before the Council is not whether to accept these reforms. The reforms are already being implemented through technological sharing that your species cannot refuse. The choice is whether to participate voluntarily in designing the transition or to resist changes that are occurring regardless of Council decisions. Ambassador Zethkar rose from his position with obvious reluctance. General Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I must ask, what if we refuse? What if the Council votes to resist these reforms? Ambassador, then you'll become irrelevant. The technological revolution is already underway on every council world. Your scientists are advancing beyond anything the current system can manage. Within months, your species will possess capabilities that make council authority meaningless, but you can't stop it. The chamber fell silent as the representatives processed the reality of their situation. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had revolutionized it. The choice was adaptation or obsolescence. High Counselor Vexani stood slowly, her crystalline form pulsing with decision-making patterns. General Chen, the Council will vote on accepting your proposed reforms. However, I suspect the outcome is predetermined by circumstances beyond our control. High Counselor, change is always difficult, especially when it challenges established systems. But evolution is natural, inevitable, and ultimately beneficial. We're simply accelerating processes that would occur eventually anyway. The galaxy is about to discover what civilization can become when every species is free to reach their full potential. It's going to be extraordinary. As General Chen's quantum consciousness projection faded from the chamber, the representatives of 43 species faced the most important decision in galactic history: embrace transformation or resist evolution. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. 3 months later, Admiral Kethvar stood on the observation deck of a newly constructed research station orbiting the former Council capital. Through transparent aluminum windows, he watched ships from dozens of species working together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Humanity had kept their promise. The galaxy was evolving, and for the first time in centuries, the future was genuinely unpredictable. which, as General Chen had explained, was exactly what made it exciting. The species that had issued an ultimatum to Earth had received something infinitely more valuable in return: the freedom to discover what they could become when fear no longer limited their potential. Humanity had answered the Council's warning with the most devastating response possible. They had made the warning irrelevant.